The Miami Grand Prix weekend was a microcosm of Max Verstappen's season so far. Strong showings when the car is quick, interspersed with disappointments that are, ultimately, Red Bull's responsibility. Sometimes that's a consequence of Red Bull's car limitations being exposed and it being simply not that fast. At others, it's down to mistakes, such as those that hit in the Miami sprint. But it can also be a bit of both, such as in Bahrain when an uncompetitive weekend was exacerbated by faulty pit stop equipment in the race. We'll get into those weaknesses shortly. For now, let's establish the extent of the contrast between rock-solid, ultra-consistent Verstappen and the volatility of Red Bull. The situation at Red Bull is not so awful that Verstappen is spectacularly outperforming a terrible car. Even Verstappen can't defy the laws of physics, and he can only extract what potential exists in the car, even if it's tricky to do so. That the Red Bull is second fastest on average this season and its qualifying pace deficit to McLaren is small proves it's a quick car. It's just not at McLaren's level even at its best. But while Verstappen is consistently at the front when the car allows it, and at times overachieving, such as with his Japanese Grand Prix victory from pole position, it is clear that Red Bull is not meeting that standard as consistently. In Miami, after Verstappen bagged pole just a few hours after Red Bull had botched his sprint race, we pointed out to Max that while he's been up there every time the car's been capable of it, some errors have crept in for Red Bull. So we asked him what more does he need for his form to become a real title bid, improvements from the car for example, or a step operationally. And Max replied, yeah, all of it. His deadpan expression and delivery of that initial answer could easily be interpreted as a flippant or dismissive response, but it wasn't. It was Max making it emphatically clear Red Bull must do better. He did elaborate, saying we need to make less mistakes and we need to find more performance, which, he pointed out, is quite straightforward in principle, but not easy to do. Miami wasn't expected to be a good track for Red Bull, and Verstappen had low expectations going into the weekend. That he took pole position was partly down to the car being improved with a small floor upgrade, partly because of McLaren underperforming and partly thanks to Verstappen overachieving. You could argue that's proof that Red Bull's in better shape than they, and sometimes we, like to point out, but McLaren felt that it underachieved by not scoring pole, even though it didn't exactly blame the drivers. Team boss Andrea Stella said their small but decisive errors were a reflection of the car's trickiness to drive over one lap. And ultimately, Verstappen and Red Bull have shown plenty of times that they can challenge and even beat McLaren over one lap. It's over a race distance that things get harder. That's why Verstappen still concedes that the colder it is, the better for Red Bull, as its tyre management is still inferior to McLaren's. Plus, as he says, we are still struggling a little bit with our limitations in the car. And these are laid bare over a full stint, which is also where the McLaren is more settled and impactful. The way the race played out confirmed Verstappen's worst fears. He led in the first stint before being passed by both Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, then ultimately finished almost 40 seconds behind the Australian. As Verstappen put it, miles off. And that was a race Verstappen excelled in, despite Norris's suggestion that the Red Bull driver fighting the McLarens harder than he should have done cost him time and therefore third place to George Russell. While it's true that did cost Verstappen a little time, the timing of the virtual safety car was what allowed Russell to take a cheap pit stop. Regardless of any criticism about race execution, there wasn't much more Verstappen could have done. We'll get into the RB21 and its potential improvements shortly, but all of the above is ultimately why Verstappen feels Red Bull needs quite a bit more to be really in a fight. Red Bull had long set standards for trackside operations in F1, but there are signs of that wavering. On track, there have been conspicuous pit stop mistakes in recent races. In Bahrain, an electrical problem led to Red Bull's traffic light system holding both Verstappen and Yuki Tsunoda in the pits for too long at their first stops. Then, when Verstappen made his second pit stop, he was stationary for 6.2 seconds, after the front right gunner required 3 attempts to get the wheel off. In the Miami sprint, Verstappen was released into the path of Kimi Antonelli in one of the most clear-cut cases of an unsafe release you'll ever see. That gave Verstappen a 10-second penalty that relegated him from 4th to 17th in the results. Sauber team principal Jonathan Wheatley, integral in Red Bull becoming F1's operational standard setter as team manager and sporting director for the team before leaving last year, said in Bahrain that pit stops are a good indicator of team morale. Now, Wheatley was talking about Sauber's improvement on that score, but it inadvertently acts as a criticism of his former team. And it's interesting to note that so far this season, Red Bull's best pit stop is only the 5th best of the season. It only has 1 stop in the top 10. But the scope of operations stretches far beyond this. Yuki Tsunoda has repeatedly questioned the quality of communication in the team in terms of how things are managed on track. That was exemplified by Verstappen compromising him in sprint qualifying in Miami, with Tsunoda citing that as evidence of poor communication. And even beyond the operational side, Red Bull's struggle to find the right driver to partner Verstappen does not reflect well on the team. Liam Lawson was promoted for the start of this season, then ditched after just 2 races, which raises big questions about the team's decision-making processes, and while Tsunoda has shown signs of promise, it's yet to come together well for him. While Red Bull makes a virtue of having a team focused on Verstappen, who is regarded by most as the best driver in F1 right now, the lack of a strong wingman can hurt Verstappen's title bid. All of this raises questions about whether the team that has lost several of the key architects of its rise to the top of F1 is falling short of the standards it once set. Adrian Newey, now at Aston Martin, and Rob Marshall, who is playing a key role at McLaren, are also among those who have left the team in recent times.
Did you know you can get 75% off a membership with us if you take out our latest special offer on Patreon? It's a great time to check out the Race Members Club, including bonus podcasts and videos, exclusive behind-the-scenes insights, the chance to ask questions for our shows, community groups where you can chat with us and like-minded fans, and you get all of our regular podcasts and YouTube videos ad-free. So if you want to become the ultimate insider, head to Patreon via the link we've posted below to claim this limited time offer.
Despite its troubles this year, Red Bull has been racking up good results with Verstappen. His Miami Grand Prix pole position was his 3rd of the year, and he's 32 points off championship leader Piastri, further than he'd like, but still in the game. So is the RB21 that bad? Well, it depends on how you look at it. The Red Bull has bounced between being the 2nd and 4th best car this season, but it has never been the clear-cut best. You could make a case that it was in Saudi Arabia, a track with plenty of the high-speed content where the car is at its best, but even then it is debatable. By contrast, in Bahrain, the car with its disconnected balance was clearly only 4th best. In Miami, a minor floor upgrade that worked well improved the performance of the car, adding a little extra downforce without compromising its stability. While Verstappen struggled with understeer through some of the Miami weekend, a small setup change before main qualifying improved the ability of the car to rotate. However, while that was an improvement, Verstappen stressed that this still didn't put the car where he wanted it to be, and this is the ongoing battle Red Bull faces. At its best, on tracks with certain characteristics, it is a strong machine that will allow Verstappen to challenge for wins if he and Red Bull execute perfectly and rivals, specifically McLaren, underachieve. But it's still a long way from where it needs to be, especially given the car has had problems with tyre management at times. With Red Bull harbouring all manner of suspicions of how McLaren is achieving its level of performance, particularly when it comes to managing rear tyre temperature, the team hopes that the front wing flexibility technical directive that kicks in for the 9th race of the season in Spain next month will change the competitive order. However, there are suspicions that this is a team that is more eager to reach for external reasons for its struggles rather than fully embrace the need to troubleshoot its own problems. On top of that, its new state-of-the-art wind tunnel in Milton Keynes won't come online until next year. And as Christian Horner has regularly pointed out, the current highly temperature-sensitive wind tunnel in Bedford is struggling when it comes to the fine detail required to optimise these very ride-height sensitive ground effect cars. The RB21 is not a bad car and it's getting better. The key question is whether Verstappen believes it can get good enough to allow him to fight for the championship, and if the team is capable of producing a strong package next year amid concerns about its new in-house power unit project. And if Red Bull is to keep hold of its star driver amid persistent rumours about a possible move to Mercedes or Aston Martin, those are concerns it must allay, and fast.